Have you ever wondered why some people just can't seem to stand you? Well, maybe that's a bit harsh, but it's true. We all have habits that make others roll their eyes the moment we walk into a room. I'm no exception. Today, I'm going to expose the terrible habits that are secretly causing people to think less of you. Yes, you. And guess what? I've been guilty of almost all of these habits. So if you're brave enough to keep watching, we'll explore them together. It's going to be a bit controversial, a bit brutally honest, but also a lot of fun. Ready to see if you're unintentionally becoming the worst? Let's get started. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to dissect the behaviors that you might not realize are pushing people away. I'm no saint. I've been a victim of these habits myself, and I believe all of us fall into similar situations from time to time. But the important thing is to recognize them and change. So, let's embark on this exciting journey of self-discovery together. 1. Gossiping, the double-edged sword that destroys relationships. Okay, let's talk about gossiping. Who among us hasn't indulged in some idle chatter before? Don't deny it. I see you nodding. Whether it's some office tea or exposing someone's relationship drama, it seems harmless, and who doesn't like to know the hot news, right? It's like we're programmed to do it. But the harsh truth is, when you're the one spreading the word, what do people think? If they talk about others behind their backs, would they talk about me when I'm not around? See, gossiping creates a vicious cycle of suspicion. I've realized this the hard way. I used to think that gossiping was a way to connect with people, like, if I share this secret, people will find me more interesting and approachable. But you know what happened? People started to avoid having deep conversations with me. They only kept conversations at a superficial level because they didn't trust me. I became the person who knew everyone's business but had no real friends. Heartbreaking, isn't it? And the problem doesn't stop there. When you're always talking about others, you're avoiding facing your own problems. It's like a strange distraction from the things you need to fix in your own life. The more I focused on the mistakes of others, the less I focused on what I needed to improve. Gossiping not only harms your relationships, but it's also toxic for you. It fuels insecurity and negativity. Instead of lifting others up, you're secretly putting them down, and you're also lowering yourself at the same time. I realized that if I wanted to have truly meaningful relationships, I had to stop using gossiping as a crutch to connect. So if you're out there spreading the tea and thinking it's harmless, let me tell you, it's not. Everyone notices, they remember, and they will definitely start distancing themselves from you. Trust me, I've been there. And you know what? There's more power in shutting down rumors than spreading them. Next time someone tries to pull you into some drama, try saying, "Nah, I'm good," and see how fast you earn genuine respect. Because at the end of the day, we all have our own messes to clean up, so let's stop focusing on others. I remember one time my close group of friends and I sat down and hashed about a new colleague. We were so engrossed in discussing the way she dressed and the way she spoke. When the party was over, I suddenly felt like something was off. Why were we wasting time and energy talking about someone else instead of talking to each other about things that are more meaningful? I realized that sometimes we gossip just because we don't have anything else to say, or worse, to cover up our own insecurities. And it was in that moment that I decided to change. Instead of gossiping, try to get to know others genuinely. Listen, share, and connect with things that are more meaningful. I believe that when we change how we see and talk to others, we will also change our own lives. 2. Emotional guerrilla warfare, the tiring passivity called passive aggression. Oh, passive aggression, also known as passive-aggressive, the art of not saying what you think, but still fully expecting others to understand. You know what I'm talking about, right? like the "I'm fine" accompanied by a cold face expressing everything except fine. Or when someone asks you to do something, you answer, sure, whatever, but inside you're planning your revenge. We've all been there, and it's a distorted version of emotional warfare. I used to think passive aggression was a smart way to avoid confrontation. Like, why argue when I can drop these veiled hints and make them feel guilty for not reading my mind? Wrong. I've learned the hard way that people are not mind readers. And if they are, they'll purposely ignore those signals. Honestly, I used to be the queen of passive-aggressive texts. Someone cancels plans, instead of saying, hey, I'm a little disappointed, I would text back, oh, you must be busy, right? Or if a friend did something that annoyed me, I would ignore them, waiting for them to figure out why I was upset. And you know what? Nobody ever figured it out. I just looked like a childish drama queen. Passive aggression is like emotional dodgeball. You think you're avoiding the problem, but you're actually throwing your frustration at others without giving them the chance to fix things. It's tiring for you and everyone around you. The worst part is it makes others see you as difficult, manipulative, or simply childish. No one wants to communicate with someone who can't say what they mean. Passive aggression is a fear of vulnerability. Simple as that. We think we're protecting ourselves from conflict, but we're actually destroying relationships. Instead of saying, hey, that hurt my feelings, or I'm sad because, we play this mind game expecting others to figure it out. And here's the hard truth. No one is obligated to guess your feelings. You are obligated to express them. I remember the day I suddenly realized this. I was having a heated argument with a friend, and I kept poking in a passive-aggressive way, hoping they would understand the problem. Instead, they looked me straight in the eye and said, if you can't tell me what's really wrong, I can't help you. And it hit me like a slap in the face. I wasn't being strong or clever by keeping silent. I was just being cowardly. Since then, I decided to say what was on my mind. It was really scary at first, but it felt so good to stop playing emotional dodgeball and start having real conversations. Things will get better. People will respect the truthfulness, even if it's hard to hear. And more importantly, you will respect yourself for not hiding behind those passive-aggressive walls. So, the next time you're about to send a veiled message or ignore someone, ask yourself, do you want to keep avoiding the problem, or do you want to grow up and face it? Trust me, life will be so much easier when you stop expecting others to decode your feelings and just say it directly. Who knows? They might surprise you and actually fix the problem. I used to have a very tense friendship because both of us were too good at being passive-aggressive. Every time something didn't sit right, instead of sitting down and talking frankly, we would play the ignore game, sulking and throwing out loaded sentences. Until one day, a mutual friend said, "You two are acting like kids." We suddenly realized how silly we were and decided to change. Although there are still many difficulties, at least we have started to communicate more openly. Focus on expressing your feelings directly and healthily. If you have trouble talking, find a trusted friend to share with, or you can write down your thoughts before talking. The important thing is to start communicating more openly so that no one has to guess what you're thinking. 3. Running away from responsibility, the blame game that makes you worse and worse. Okay, let's talk about a classic habit. Never taking responsibility. You know those people. Nothing is ever their fault. Late for the deadline? My Wi-Fi was glitching. Failed the test? The teachers just hate me. Yeah, I used to be like that. I was the master of making excuses. I have to admit that blaming outside things makes us feel more comfortable. It's like an immunity card that helps us not feel guilty. But the harsh truth is, when you're always blaming, you're secretly screaming, I can't control my own life. and people will start to see you as unreliable, childish, and, to be honest, a bit pathetic. I'll give you an example from my own life. When I was in school, I was known for never doing my homework, but I always had a reason to make excuses. The printer broke, or I had too much homework from other subjects, or the familiar saying, "I didn't know it was due today." Until one day, a teacher pulled me aside and said, "You know, every time you have an excuse, you're taking away your chance to grow. You'll never improve if you never admit your mistakes." Oh, those words hit me like a punch in the face. Because making excuses sounds safe. It protects us from criticism, from feeling like a failure. But it's also trapping us in a vicious cycle of mediocrity. When you don't take responsibility, you're giving up the power to change things. If everything is always someone else's fault, how can you ever get better? The answer is no. I realize that making excuses doesn't protect me. It's holding me back. Every time I blamed someone or something, I was avoiding the truth that maybe I hadn't tried my best. Maybe I could have done better. And you know what? That's not a bad thing at all. Real growth comes from saying, yeah, I messed up and I'll learn from it. Responsibility is freedom. When you take responsibility, you can do something to change. I remember the first time I actually took responsibility for a mistake at work. I was late for the deadline, and instead of giving a list of reasons as usual, I just said, "I didn't manage my time well. I'll try harder next time." And you know what? My boss didn't get angry. No one fired me. In fact, they respected me more for being responsible. I realized that people don't expect you to be perfect. They just want you to be honest and responsible. But hey, I get it. Taking responsibility is really hard. No one likes the feeling of messing things up. But in the long run, it's a game changer. When you stop making excuses, people will trust you more, and you'll also trust yourself more. And honestly, isn't it better to admit your fault and move on than live in fear of being found out? Plus, life will be easier when you no longer have to juggle with tons of excuses. No more exercising your memory by trying to remember your made-up crap reasons. Just accept it, learn, and move on. So the next time you're about to blame the dog, the weather, or even the universe for your mistakes, try this. Admit it. It's a little scary at first, but trust me, the feeling at the end will be much better. And who knows, people might respect you more. A pretty cool thing, right? Now go out there and start taking responsibility. Your future self will thank you. I used to have a friend. Every time something happened, no matter how small, she would always find a way to blame others. She was always the victim in every situation, and it really made me feel tired. Later, I realized that she was using blame to cover up her own insecurities and lack of confidence. And that's when I realized that taking responsibility is a sign of maturity. Focus on finding solutions instead of blaming. Ask yourself, what could I have done differently in this situation? Learn from your mistakes and try not to repeat them. I believe that when we take responsibility for our actions, we will become stronger and more mature. 4. Forgetting personal hygiene, disrespect for yourself and those around you. All right, guys, it's time for us to address a sensitive topic, personal hygiene. Yeah, I know, this is one of those topics that we shouldn't even have to discuss, but it's clear we need to talk about it. You'd think that after centuries of civilization, everyone would have mastered the art of soap and water, but it's clear that some people haven't gotten there yet. Honestly, no one wants to be the person that others avoid because of a peculiar fragrance. But it still happens. And hey, I'm not here to judge, well, maybe just a little bit, but more importantly, I'm here to help you avoid becoming that person. I'm going to confess something personal. When I was in middle school, I went through a phase where I thought deodorant was unnecessary. I thought that if I didn't see myself sweating, everything was fine, right? Wrong. I only realized it when one day, someone tactfully, but also awkwardly, suggested that I try a new type of deodorant, oh boy, that was a big shock. There's nothing worse than realizing that you've been walking around and fragrancing everyone, causing you to reconsider your whole life. Trust me, that day, I ran straight home and bought every product in the personal hygiene aisle. But here's the thing. When we talk about personal hygiene, it's not just about smelling good, it's about respect. Not only respect for others, but also respect for yourself. Because here's the harsh truth. If you don't take care of your personal hygiene, others will begin to doubt the other things you're neglecting. It's like a silent red flag that says if they can't even take a shower, how can they handle bigger responsibilities? It's not fair, but that's how others think. And it's not just about body odor. We're talking unbrushed teeth, greasy hair, dirty clothes, a whole messy combo. If you're walking around looking like you just crawled out of bed after 3 straight days, people will start wondering, are they okay? Are they even trying? And here's a deeper part. Sometimes a lack of personal hygiene can be a sign of a bigger problem. Depression, exhaustion, low self-esteem, they're all connected. When I went through a difficult phase, I overlooked the basics, like whatever, no one cares anyway. But the problem is, not taking care of yourself physically can pull you down even further mentally. There was a period in my life when I was overwhelmed by work and stress, and self-care was overlooked. I skipped showers, wore the same clothes from the day before, and hoped no one would notice. But you know what? People did notice. And it wasn't until a close friend pulled me aside and said, "Hey, are you okay? You've been acting a little strange lately," that I realized I had let things go too far. That wake-up call helped me understand that neglecting my personal hygiene was only a symptom of a larger problem. I wasn't taking care of my mental health. Personal hygiene isn't just about looking good and smelling good. It's also a form of self-respect. It's the first step to showing both the world and yourself that you value yourself. When you let go of the basics, you're telling yourself, I'm not worth the effort, and that can lead to deeper feelings of self-doubt. But here's the good news. Taking small steps, like brushing your teeth or washing your hair, can give you the boost you need to start feeling better. It's strange that something so simple can have such a big impact on your mood. So I understand that some days dragging yourself into the bathroom is like climbing Mount Everest. But trust me, once you do, you'll feel like a new person. And hey, those around you will thank you too. It's a win-win. And the fact is, there's nothing better than feeling fresh and clean when you step out of the shower. So please, do yourself and others a favor. Lather up, spray deodorant, brush your teeth, and get out there smelling like a champion. Remember that good personal hygiene isn't just about impressing others. It's also about taking care of yourself. So, if you're still wondering whether to take a shower or not, this is your sign. Go, you'll feel better. I went through a difficult period in my life. I didn't want to communicate with anyone. I just wanted to be alone in my room. And of course, I neglected my personal hygiene. Until one day, my mother said, "Honey, you have to take care of yourself because that's how you love yourself." Those words touched my heart, and I started to change. I realized that taking care of myself isn't just about appearance, but also about love and respect for myself. Make personal hygiene a daily habit. Spend time on yourself and love your body. And if you are having difficulty, reach out to a friend or a mental health professional for help. The important thing is that you know you are not alone on this path. 5. Bottomless pit, the habit of complaining that pulls you down to the abyss. Okay, let's be honest with each other for a moment. We all know someone who complains about everything. I mean, they could be sitting on a tropical beach, holding a cocktail, and still be able to find something to complain about. Oh, it's too sunny, or why is there so much sand? You know that type of person, right? And here's the funny thing. If you're sitting here thinking, I don't know anyone like that, then well, you might be that person. But don't worry, we've all been like that at some point, including me. I went through a phase, especially when I was stressed, where I complained constantly, and not even about big things. I would walk into the office and complain, "Why is it so cold here?" Or "Why is this coffee so bad?" It felt like I couldn't stop. But until one day, a friend straight up said to me, "Hey, you complain more than anyone I've ever met." Those words hit me like a punch in the face. I didn't even realize how negative I was being. And let's be real, constantly complaining is tiring for you and everyone around you. It's like contagious negativity, and when you're always focused on what's wrong, others will start to see you as a dark cloud. Worse, they'll start to avoid you. Trust me, when people see you coming and their first reaction is to hide in the nearest room to avoid hearing another complaining song, that's not a good sign. And here's a slightly uncomfortable truth. Complaining feels good in the moment. It's like venting frustration. But the truth is, constantly complaining is not harmless. It creates a vicious cycle where you only focus on the negative, and that's all you see. It's like you're training your brain to ignore anything good that's happening around you. And if you're always bringing the negativity, others will start to think less of you. They'll think, if they're always unhappy, maybe they're the problem. And here's the deeper issue. Constantly complaining is often a mask for something bigger. When I went through my complaining phase, it wasn't because of bad coffee or a cold office. It was because I felt overwhelmed, stressed, and out of control of my life. Complaining was just a way to vent, but it wasn't helping at all. On the contrary, it made me feel worse. I was just amplifying the negativity in my life instead of finding a solution. I realized that when I focused on complaining, I wasn't solving any problems at all. I was just sending out negative signals, and no one wants to hear a repeated negative song. So I started doing something a little unusual. Every time I felt like complaining, I would stop and ask myself, what can I do about this? If I couldn't fix it, I would let it go. And if I could, I would stop complaining and start acting. It was difficult at first, but gradually, I noticed a big change in how people reacted to me and how I felt about myself. Here's the important thing. Life is always going to have ups and downs. There's always going to be things that don't go your way. That's a fact. But always focusing on what's wrong will prevent you from seeing what's right. It blocks out gratitude, and gratitude is the antidote to complaining. The more you practice finding the good things, the less you'll feel the need to complain. And guess what? You'll start attracting more positivity. People will want to be around you because you'll lift them up instead of pulling them down. So if you find yourself complaining about everything from the weather to the Wi-Fi, then maybe it's time for you to stop and ask yourself, am I really trying to solve it, or am I just stuck in a complaining habit? Because honestly, constant complaining isn't cute, and it certainly doesn't help anyone. The next time you're about to drop a complaint bomb, try changing it. Find something to be grateful for. You'll be surprised how much better you feel. And trust me, those around you will thank you for it. Remember, complaining might feel easy, but finding the good things, that's the real power move. I have a friend who can always find something to complain about, whether it's a sunny day or a fun party. I used to think that was just her personality, until I realized that she was complaining to attract the attention of everyone. And then I decided to never let myself fall into the pit of complaining again. Focus on the positive things in life. Find joy in the little things, and learn to accept the things you can't change. I believe that when we change our attitudes, we will change our lives. 6. Rubber time. The habit of being late shows disrespect. Okay, let's address a habit that everyone knows. Chronic lateness. You know, there's always that one person who's always late. Like the line, "I'll be there in 5 minutes," that then turns into 20 minutes. or the text "I'm on my way," but they're actually still sitting on the sofa in their pajamas. Yes, we're talking about those people who are always living in a time warp. Before you start giving your excuses, let's be honest with each other. I used to be that person. I was the champion of being late fashionably, except that it's never fashionable and certainly not stylish. It's just procrastination. I used to think it was my little rebellion against time, but it wasn't cool. It was just disrespectful. I used to have a terrible habit of being late for everything. Meetings, appointments, family dinners, it didn't matter. I used to think I was immune to the normal constraints of time, until one day, my best friend pulled me aside and said, being late isn't just about being late. It also shows that you don't value my time. Those words hit me hard. I had never thought about it that way. I was too busy with my own mess of time management that I didn't realize how disrespectful it was. And let's face it, being chronically late isn't just a personal quirk. It's a major red flag to others. It says my time is more important than yours. Whether it's a job interview, dinner with friends, or just a simple meeting, if you're always late, others will start to see you as unreliable, disorganized, and certainly disrespectful. And here's a bitter truth. Being late often hides deeper issues. For some, it's a lack of respect, but for others, it's a way to avoid commitment or confrontation. Sometimes we're late because we're secretly procrastinating, or because we don't really want to be there. We think that if we come late enough, maybe they'll think we're busy or something. But in reality, it just makes others question your integrity and your concern. I had to face that uncomfortable truth. I wasn't just late because I had no sense of time, but I was also late because I was afraid to face certain situations. I realized that I was using lateness as a shield, an excuse to avoid fully showing up. Once I realized that, I started to focus on managing my time and being more honest about why I was avoiding things. Chronic lateness isn't just a bad habit, it's also a symptom of deeper issues like time management, self-esteem, and respect for others. When you're late, you're not only messing up your own schedule, but you're also showing that you don't value the time and effort of others. And that's really hard to overcome, but it's worth it. I started setting alarms, planning ahead, and even arriving early to deal with my lateness. It wasn't easy, but it made a big difference. People started trusting me more, and I also felt better about myself. I was no longer known as the person who was always late, but as someone people could rely on. So, here's a challenge for you. If you're a person who is always late, then it's time for you to change. Start with small things. Set your clock 5 minutes early. Prepare your clothes the night before, or simply leave the house earlier. And see how your relationships and your reputation improve. Because honestly, being on time is not just about respect, it's also about not missing the moments in life. So stop chasing time and start showing up on time. Trust me, it'll make a big difference. I have a friend who is always late for every appointment, whether it's dinner or a movie. I used to be very annoyed by it, but later I realized that she was using lateness to express her lack of self-confidence. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to please others, so she was always trying to arrive late to avoid attention. And then I realized that being late is not just a bad habit, but also a sign of insecurity. Focus on planning ahead and managing your time effectively. Create a specific schedule and stick to it. And if you are having difficulty, reach out to a friend or a professional for help. The important thing is that you realize that your time is just as important as the time of others. 7. Involuntary victim. The habit of playing the victim makes you lose your power. Okay, let's explore a pretty common habit. Playing the victim. You know the type. They have an endless list of misfortunes, and no matter what happens, it's always someone else's fault. If something goes wrong, they'll be the first to exclaim, "Why does this always happen to me?" And here's a truth. Sometimes it's not that the universe is trying to get you, but it's your own thoughts. Before you start to push back, I get it. Life is always going to have its ups and downs, and sometimes you feel like you're the only one who's going through them. But here's the interesting part. Playing the victim can be a sneaky way to avoid responsibility and true growth. And honestly, it's not fun to be around. I definitely had a phase like that. I used to complain about why things never worked out for me. Didn't get the promotion, my boss probably hates me. Having relationship troubles, I'm probably cursed. And you know what? I didn't realize I was sinking into a victim mentality until a friend spoke frankly to me. She said, "You always see yourself as a victim, but have you ever thought about how you contribute to those situations?" Those words stung, but it was a wake-up call. And here's the important thing. Playing the victim can become a habit. It's like wearing a cloak of perpetual pessimism. You start to believe that everything is happening to you instead of because of you. It's tiring for everyone around you, and it can limit your personal development. When you're always looking for someone to blame, you won't find solutions or opportunities to learn. Here's a bitter truth. Sometimes playing the victim is easier than facing uncomfortable truths about yourself. It's a way to avoid responsibility. It's more comfortable to point fingers and say, "It's not my fault," than look in the mirror and ask, "What could I have done differently?" But it's not empowerment. It's disempowerment. I realized that the hard way. There was a time when I blamed everyone for my career failures, until I started to take responsibility for my actions and decisions, that things started to change. I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started seeing myself as an active person in my life. It was really liberating for me. Instead of waiting for things to get better on their own, I started changing, setting goals, and working to achieve them. Playing the victim is like being stuck in a vicious cycle. You keep running, but you don't get anywhere. When you stop playing the victim and start taking responsibility, you will break free from that cycle. It doesn't mean that challenges in life will disappear, but it does mean that you will have the strength to handle them. It's a shift from a powerless mindset to an active one. So if you notice you're falling into a victim mindset, try this. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I do about this?" Empower yourself, become the hero of your own story. It'll be worth so much more than being a victim. The next time you're about to play the victim, remember that you have the power to change the game. Take charge and watch how your life and your relationships change. And hey, if you need a reminder, come back and watch this video. I promise there will be no victim mentality here, just a dose of bitter medicine. I used to have a friend. She always complained that life was not fair to her, that everyone was treating her unfairly. She always played the victim in every situation, and it really made me feel tired. I used to try to help her, but then I realized that she didn't want to change. She liked being in that role. And that's when I realized you can't help someone if they don't want to help themselves. Focus on finding your inner strength. Learn to trust yourself and your abilities. Learn to face the challenges of life actively and strongly. I believe that when we stop playing the victim, we will find our true power. Okay, guys, so we've gone through the most terrible habits that can make others look at you with contempt. Whether it's gossiping, emotional guerrilla warfare, never taking responsibility, neglecting personal hygiene, nonstop complaining, being chronically late, or playing the victim. And hey, if you recognize yourself in any of these habits, don't worry. The good news is that these are habits that we can completely change. Life is too short to get stuck in patterns that don't serve us or anyone around us. I'm not saying that you have to become perfect. On the contrary, just a little bit of self-awareness is enough to make a difference. And making the smallest changes can also have a big impact on your relationships, your confidence, and how you appear to the world. Plus, honestly, no one has ever complained about being around someone who is honest, responsible, and always smells good, right? So here's a challenge that I want to leave with you. Think about one habit that you can change this week. It could be taking responsibility for a mistake, controlling your negativity, or maybe just taking a shower. Small steps, guys. Thank you for staying with me in this video. If you had a laugh, some insights, or even a cringy moment of self-reflection, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs a gentle nudge. We are all on this journey together. No one is perfect, but we can all be better. And remember, the next time you're about to spread tea or complain, think about what you're saying about yourself. That's usually a pretty good starting point. See you in the next video.